aware by now that this meeting is being recorded. Got it. Okay. This is one of the only 6 institutions in the world which is dedicated for ornithology studies, and you will have a certificate from this institute. Is a real big gem-filled feather in your cap. So feel proud about it. I feel so proud about this institute that I got my PhD degree from this institute under the illustrious guidance of all the scientists who are there. That is one thing. Another thing I want to specifically thank Dr. Pramod sir for considering me for this course as a guest faculty. I feel so bad I couldn't make it despite his request, but compulsions are such that I have to be here. But he could have as well took me off from the list if people are not coming, because that would have been a great thing. But thanks for keeping me in the schedule, sir. Without wasting much time further, I get on to my presentation. The topic given to me is status of bird wildlife strikes in India and best practices around the world. Actually, I was just thinking of covering my PhD thesis, because that would really make you a knowledgeable person with regard to the latest scientific research that has gone in. But since sir has given this topic, I touch this with all respect and with whatever knowledge I have. Are you all able to hear me? If you can just give a confirmation, please. You can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Birds. Next slide. Birds are amazing flying creatures. I'm sure after yesterday's field trip in SACON, you all are much more thrilled, you are much more inspired, and you will enjoy this watching as a hobby, watching as a profession, much more. Next slide. No doubt, aircraft are amazing flying machines. If humans have to take pride in what they have created as artifacts since the invention of fire and probably the wheel, certainly the invention of aircraft, especially the modern day aircraft with all the aerodynamics, it is one of the achievements that humans as a species should feel proud about, of using their intelligence to create such machines. Next slide. But once both of them meet, the birds and the aircraft, though both of them individually are amazing creatures, amazing creations of God and so-called human, but their meeting is not always a desirable solution to both the birds and the humans. So this is where the human intellect in the next level comes into picture, wherein we have to use our all faculties, our available information, our available data to avoid this and make it beneficial to both. That is, the birds, the amazing creatures, they should fly, they should continue to live on Earth as another species contributing to the biological diversity. At the same time, humans continue to work and progress in their intellectual endeavor or otherwise, whatever. I don't say economical, because economics is not the purpose of humans on Earth, I suppose. But by flying, we are achieving many other things. Probably economy is only a byproduct, and we should leave it at a place where economy infringes with the independence and existence of other species. This is a personal opinion, and I'm sure all of you will agree. At least after spending 5 days in SACON, you will endorse my idea. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. The status I wanted to touch upon like this with this one slide, though I can do a presentation on the analysis of this data itself, but I will cut down that and uh, say how it stands as of today. The data is not given year wise because of multiple reasons, and data from DGCA, that is the third column in the top, or the fifth column in the top, DGCA, that is the Director General Civil Aviation India. Their figures, that is 2012 to 18. I have taken 6 years of theirs because it is 6 to 7 year bracket what I have tried to compare here, so that we know the current status. Where do we stand? I also compare with the figures of Federal Aviation Administration of USA, because undoubtedly by number wise it is United States of America, and I am sure even by economy wise they are the worst sufferers, though they may not be the worst sufferers in terms of efficiency or percentage, or in comparison with the amount of operations. I give it that they are managing it pretty well, and probably they do form a template for other nations to follow. May not be the perfect template, but certain basic templates certainly they have learned through hard losses, and certainly the lessons learned which they have learned are worth carrying forward for us also. I just run through the figures here. 2001 to 2007, Indian Air Force recorded 734 bird strikes. That is roughly when the ornithology cell was formed in Indian Air Force. 2008 to 15, I treat it as phase one of ornithology cell. From 2008 to 2015, when basically me and Vinko Vinayak Sharma, and in next 1 year plus, Wing Commander Rakesh and Wing Commander Ravi Ahlawat led the team. And 2016 to 22 is another 6 year bracket, 6 to 7 year bracket I was putting. Partly myself, partly Vinayak Sharma sir heading, but our being there is incidental. What was happening is for the data and what Air Force was doing and what the environment changing are recorded here. So 734 in the first 7 years to 1018 in the next 7 years, and then next 6 years we already have crossed 1122. That shows a steep increase in the number. Vis-a-vis, we just go to 2012 to 18. That is the readily available data on the public forum. The DGCA, that is civil aviation, makes it 6,000 plus. So we can make it out very clearly that they are in leaps and bounds higher in numbers. But does that really mean they are bad? That will come in the next analysis. The FAA, 2,49,544. Of course, this is spread over 32 years. In any case, the average comes to around 7,700 plus. So that's the number of bird strikes they are recording every year on an average. And I think recently they've crossed 12,500, 13,000 in the last year, only the civil aviation in USA. So status of bird strike hazard or wildlife strike hazard, IAF stands at 1 point, the DGCA stands at 1 point, and FAA stands at another very high pedestal. So it also goes proportionally or non-proportionally the amount of losses each one has suffered. So we come to the number of damaging incidents that is shown against each number of strikes in the individual columns. But what is more important is the last row, that is percentage of incidents resulting in damage. In Indian Air Force, we had in the first bracket of 7 years, 44% of the incidents used to result in damage, which I would say is a bad record. Not individually pointing out to anyone, but whatever was happening is like this, because it is, I am making this statement simply because look at the figures next to it in the following columns. The next 7 years, we reduced the number of percentage of strike to 32%. And in the recent times, we have come down to 23.4%. And that too, literally going down the number of CAT 1, that is complete crash of aircraft, reducing to 1 or 2. So in that way, we have progressed well, despite the numbers it is showing at the top, 732, 734 to 1100. We are able to reduce the damage. That's an achievement. That's the science. That's the way to measure the functionings, or the way we are implementing and how are we reaping the benefits. Vis-a-vis, we have the DGCA data, that is 11.7%, and FAA data says out of 2,49,000 plus strikes, 17,000 are damaging, which amounts to around 7%. Generally, what is accepted is neither 7 nor 11. Generally, a rough figure that is accepted is around 10% of the total incidents result in damage. Given that fact, probably the Indian Air Force is still not completely reporting. I would say this because I have studied the data of many countries. It's not just the USA, because that is what is generally available if you go on the net. But through deep search, I have done enough countries data. By and large, most countries data falls into this ballpark figure of 10%, and it's very, very odd that Indian Air Force has a record of damage up to 23%. Either we really having our kind of operations leading to the damage, or it is just that the number of incidents are not totally being reported. That is, we will not grow scientifically. What I urge all these qualified ornithologists in aviation ornithology is a true picture of our efficiency. The true picture of environment comes only when the data is sanitized and full. Otherwise, skewed information, skewed data lead to skewed inferences, and decisions taken against skewed inferences may turn out to be counterproductive and even dangerous. So that's where we should build our data. And I request you all, as you go back to the fields, ensure that all bird strikes are reported. That should be the biggest takeaway for you after this course. And a data like this, it may be good to show by individual stations. I had only 5 bird strike, I had only 7 bird strike, but out of 7, if you have 5 damaging, then that's not a good data to show. People who don't have time may see only the number of strikes, but those who are concerned about operations, those who are concerned about economy, will look at the extent of damage, will look at the percentage of damage leading incidents. So with this, I round up my topic of status of bird strikes and wildlife strikes in India, giving you a larger perspective of DGCA data and the USA data. Next slide, please. As far as the topic of best practices is considered, it's a big topic and it will remain debatable for years to come, because the way you look at it, the way you sensitize yourself to look at the best practices changes, maybe very fast, or changes by individual to individual. So it is very difficult to say, okay, this is the best practice. But there are certainly certain principles. Best practices is certain practices which are based on specific principles that I'll try to just that I have tried to list it out here. That is, number one is allow nature to work. This I say it with quite an amount of experience. I have spent hours and hours looking at aircraft and birds in the same environment, almost going towards a collision, but birds have an uncanny knack of avoiding aircraft. So there's this situation like station like Yelahanka a couple of years back, that is 2014 to 16, or even 9 to 14, when it was at its worst, or even Hindan, where all our 75 aircraft used to zoom through within, say, 12 minutes. All of them used to come and do the display and go. And that time you have all the um, black kites in the environment. Seeing after all these things after multiple times, nature has its own way of surviving. The birds do find a way to survive, but what we are looking at is avoiding those remote damages, which is costing too heavy for us in terms of money, life, and the resources. So whenever we try to design an anti-bird strike measure, we should allow the nature to work to the maximum. Then have continuous studies. It cannot happen that you start one day and do some studies and then say, okay, I'm done. I know everything about bird strike. I know everything about the environment. No, it is not the way to approach this problem. This problem requires a informed man, I don't say always scientist, but informed person with an appreciation for the nature, an appreciation for ecology, and an appreciation for aviation and its economics. He has to be continuously involved, and the data should flow scientifically in. I will not name the airport, but in one of the National Bird Strike Control Committee meetings, one of the leading airports, which is suffering one of the highest in the country, said, I asked them, are you doing the DNA barcoding? They said, yes, we did it for 1 year and we have the data. And that they stopped 3 years back. And then they say 1 year they did the DNA barcoding of the species involved, and they are thinking that data is continuing, and that data is the same even as on today. It is like blind man leading blind man. So that we need to have a continuous study by informed man, and I think that is the best practice. Not hiring a person for 1 year or hiring a services for 1 year and then leave it, or experience the result for some time and then say, okay, everything is done and it will go on stable like this. That is not the best practice. Sharing the data is another important best practice. Share the data with the airfields next to you, share the data with higher formations, share the data with the people in the field. I would even say Air Force can just think of sharing the data, but when I proposed with full justification, the Air Force had its uh, reservations, because there were ways and means to come to the secondary inferences, which was almost close to the first primary inferences if we have the direct data. to arrive at the level of operations, level of defense, combat preparedness. So we are not sharing the data with others, but within Air Force and with the experts like Pramod sir, who can really look into the problem now uh, with so much experience at different airfields across the country. We should share the data and come out with uh, inferences which are scientifically and deeply analyzed. I think one of the best practices in the world is what is at least on the paper is there in India, that is Rule 91, that is to keep the high bird activity epicenter at least 10 km away from the airfield reference point. When I cover my own studies, I will come to this. Specifically, I am more than convinced after seeing multiple airfields and some of them very closely for 2 years and with a focused study, not when I'm going for place A to place B watching it. A focused 2 year study is there, and unfortunately, I have not recorded the Mysore data in my PhD thesis also. It is just there with me. Someday I hope to publish another paper on that. Multiple places we have the confirmation that at 10 kilometers, the level of bird activity of any species drops down drastically to almost negligible. I don't say it is zero. I don't say it is zero, but it comes down to almost negligible level. So keeping this rule 91 or the 10-kilometer radius from the bird activity epicenter, I would say there is absolutely no doubt about this to be declared as one of the main best practices for aviation in the world. Grass management is certainly another thing. I have not told what height, what we need to do, because that depends on the kind of insects which are there, kind of birds which are there in the area. So we leave it at that. But there is a principle of grass management is a great thing which can give phenomenal benefits, because this forms a main biotic factor in the environment. So this, by manipulating this, we can manipulate multiple things, multiple factors, both biotic and abiotic factors in the environment. So, but grass management in general, a medium height that is 8 to 12 inches, what we keep harping upon, is good enough to keep most of the birds, but not all birds. So most of the damage causing birds or most of the bird strikes itself within the Indian subcontinent, it should suffice for us. But grass management certainly remains one of the best practices. I also listed the biological intervention, not in the general classic sense as people understand it, like Airbus when the problem was put up to them. So the Airbus engineer himself told in one of the international conferences, "We are engineers. We don't know biology, so we were given the problem that the birds are hitting. So they painted one aircraft like a cat in the front, and they thought all the birds will go away, which will never happen. So that is not the kind of biological intervention. Also, it is not that you just keep some dogs or cats in the airfield and the bird will go. It will not go, because they're not the natural enemies as it is. They are in general canines, but birds are themselves very independent creatures. So they don't go away just like that because we have kept a dog. But in a systematic way, if you do it, then it will start giving result. I also want to emphasize, I'm specifically mentioning the falconry, which people keep telling it works, it works, it works, it works for specific times, specific short period, but it has proved to be the otherwise across the world. Across the world, at multiple places, people have tried this and found that it is not an idea which can be carried forward. So this biological intervention as a dog walking module, as we are practicing, we also have built up the data thanks to Wing Commander Vinayak sir. We have the data, but we have not been able to publish a peer-reviewed article in a journal which is peer-reviewed. But we'll certainly do that to tell the world that how this kind of a biological intervention, which is not in a classical sense, but a twisted version of biological intervention, gives great benefits to the airfield in managing the bird strike hazard. I think with these main specific points covered, I want to really cover my PhD thesis, because having done this course, I want you to be aware of this thesis, which has been done with tremendous amount of effort. I don't say it is because of me. It is the people who are sitting at different parts of the country poured in the data for me so that I could make it more scientific, more rigorous, more statistically verifiable. That kind of a data could come in because you probably, some of you are there already sitting here. The data from you people is the one which made my thesis what it is. So the next slide, please. My thesis was titled, I'm not giving you a question paper, but if I were to give you a question paper, this will really be a question. Those who can rattle out the title of my thesis, because it will certainly make you understand what has been studied in the thesis. That is assessment of management strategies of the bird hazards to aircraft in select Indian Air Force airfields. So we have, I don't say I, it is me, we as a team who collected the data, and the phenomenal amount of intellectual support and I would say hospitality support that I got from SACON, all the JRFs, scientists, and not to miss out on my guide, Dr. Pramod, and my other colleagues who are there along with me doing PhD. It is all the intellectual aspects were put in to analyze the whole thing, and then we have, I don't take it as my PhD, it is our PhD. It is not, Wing Commander Srinidhi got only the certificate from there, but it is SACON's, it is Indian Air Force's thesis. So everyone has equal right and everyone has equal stake in this. And I would say everyone has takeaway lessons in it. Unlike many of the theses, they are done for the award of degree, and then it doesn't see much of application in the immediate future at least. But we have this takeaways which can be taken away, especially by a select crowd like the one which is sitting in SACON today. Next slide, please. I'll go a little fast from here. The can you go back to the previous slide, please? Objectives. Do we? Okay, need for a okay. Next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide. And the next slide. Okay. Objectives of the study is very important. It was to understand the community structure, pattern of diversity, and species distribution of birds in Indian Air Force airfields. Might sound little technical at this point of time, but I'm sure after spending 3 days, 3.5 days to be precise, in SACON, this all would have become part of your general vocabulary, though you don't use these terms in the Indian Air Force environment. Community structure, we are not to just look at black kite because it is hitting, or we look at only the lapping because it is hitting, or look at only myna because it is hitting. We have to look at the whole community structure, and we wanted to place on record what kind of community structure is there, pattern of diversity and species distribution. These are all the words which you should get familiarized, so that you analyze these aspects when you go back to the airfield and then take informed decisions. The second objective was to assess the bird strike related hazards to aircraft in Indian airfields. That was mainly comparison of the data of bird strike. And the third and the most important objective, I would say, was to scientifically gauge the effect of different strategies employed for bird hazard management by different airports. We looked at this in different ways. The data poured in, primary data, that is, I went to different places and collected, and people from other places sat for at least 1 year during their time series data collection and gave us the data. I don't say me, they gave us the data which was put into the analysis. Next slide, please. Past and current understanding, I'll skip this. These were the study areas. All of you are familiar. So I mean, it has been sort of coded so that people don't come to know of the airfields which have been studied because it had the angle of Indian Air Force, but most of you would be able to relate to the place and their name and the location. The important thing was, it was the idea of the Manipal University, the doctoral committee, selection committee, that I should expand my data to as far as possible. That's why we took it from Jammu and Kashmir. Sorry, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. We selected the Air Force stations from Jammu and Kashmir to Andaman Nicobar, north-south stretch with Sulur in the direct axis of north-south, but by lat-long calculation, Andaman Nicobar was the southernmost, and Chabua to Jamnagar. We covered these 18 airfields to give us a fair understanding of the whole of Indian subcontinent bird structure communities, bird community structure in airfields across India. Next slide, please. So leave the research questions, but the objective was to understand the community structure, which I already covered. Next slide. I'm sure all of you are familiar with the time series data collection. This was the technique which was used. I will not hop on that. This was the outcome. We had Jamnagar recording 83 species, which is very rich. Anybody who has been, next slide, please. Next slide. Yeah. Jamnagar, that is the first tall bar. 83 types of species were recorded as against 23 species in Srinagar. That is Jammu and Kashmir, Srinagar. And just above that is Jammu and Kashmir, Jammu airfield. So 35. Otherwise, we are sitting on places where we are rich in terms of birds. If only you have the eyes to see, you will see at least 40 birds in any other airfield. So this is how the species variation goes on. So by and large, barring few exceptional stations like Jamnagar, Gwalior, and Sirsa, also give it to Gorakhpur, 63. We generally find across 40 to 55 species of birds in most airfields across the country, and I am sure this statement of mine can be well augmented now with the kind of studies that has been carried out by Dr. Pramod and his team over last 8-9 years. So next slide. The activity counts. This is how it goes. The first long horizontal bar is from Agra. We had counted basically 1 million birds for this PhD. That is 10,80,000, nearly 1.1 million actually. That's one minute. There is an aircraft taking off. Out of 1 million birds that was counted in whatever the time period we were considering, it is 1 year. That is, the Agra took away 25%. 250,000 was there. 250,000 birds are there flying over Agra Air Force Station. Then again, we have the Srinagar, which was least in terms of number of species, is the second highest in terms of total number of activity that is counted. That is nearly 1.5 lakh were counted there. So it doesn't mean that the species richness is not there. You will not have birds. It can be bad. A classic example is Srinagar for that. The next one is the Jamnagar, wherein we counted 83 species, and also the number of activity count was also high. So this is probably kind of one of the nightmares for aviation safety specialists, aerospace safety specialists. So that's why I ensured to keep myself current. Every year, make one visit to Jamnagar, make one visit to Srinagar, and make one visit to Agra. As long as you're in ornithology, sir, then you know what can be the worst and how it is dynamically changing. Leaving that, if you see, just like what I told about the number of species, somewhere to start from Kalaikunda, 18,000, or even Tamil Nadu Sulur from the bottom, fifth from the bottom, 25,000 to 80,000 birds. I think you will fairly come across in most airfields with small variation. You can put an average, but if it is not there, then you really need to see. It's a extreme of the cases. Not every airfield. It is unlike an average airfield. So we have to see whether it is below an average airfield or above an average airfield in terms of bird strike or bird hazard or bird activity wise. So this is one way to look at it. And if you have done this course, this kind of a overall exposure, the topic given was bird strike hazard status, but the bird activity status also is an important thing to know, that once we go and study one airfield, we have reference, the worst reference and the best reference, and then we will be able to place this airfield in the scale, where does it stand? Because any station you go, they say we are the worst. They say we are the worst, and they ask you for the manpower next. But we should be able to place the airfield. That's where what Vinayak Sharma sir has done, that is grading of airfield. Speaks in different way, which is the worst. So we are only talking about activity. Mind you, it is not the hazard. It is activity. We should be able to gauge and place an airfield. Where does it stand between worst and best airfield? Next slide, please. So we have dominant species. Which are the species which have been counted maximum? Rose-ringed parakeet is the one which has been counted highest in Agra. So again, 250,000, but may not be in the same numbers at every places. But rock pigeon is something, one species which is found across the country, I suppose. Of course, a huge number of them in Srinagar, where the weather is worse for them to survive. But the way they are surviving is amazing, and it's a testimony to the way how life springs back. You throw difficulties at them, we often leave it off. So life throws small, troubles. We say we cannot handle, but the way it is said that there were no rock pigeons in Srinagar for many years back. Somebody introduced it, and thereafter the way they have survived, they have not only survived, they have actually reached, I would say, best proportions. So do not underestimate the life just because they don't have a degree or this, they don't have a school leaving certificate. You don't think they cannot manage. Their instinctive capabilities are very high, very strong, and they do survive in ways more than one to propagate their own species. Common myna is the next one, and then I put the top 6, 7 species. Common myna, cattle egret, black kite, house swift, and the house crow. These top 6, 7 species account for 74% of the activities that was counted. Rest all I would say is 100. Rest of the species are, I would say, is negligible, though they are the most often seen, like paddyfield pipit, Asian, sorry, swiftlet, all this barn swallow. We may come across again and again, but their dominance over the airfield across the country is at a lower side. Next slide, please. I'll skip this slide. Next slide. So here we have the descriptive numbers. Just I have highlighted the averages in the first, that is mean. The least number, the average came out to be in AFA. TLA is Telangana AFA, and the highest average, of course, this Agra has taken first for many things, so it stands there. Next slide, please. Can you come to the comb structure? One slide before, behind, yeah. This is, sorry, I'm running two different ones. Similarity of bird community. This is something, another concept which I want you to carry from SACON, which we generally don't speak in the basic ornithology course. Community structure and bird community similarity. So this is what was analyzed, and this is how you can create scientific diagrams which says which are the two stations which are closely resembling each other in terms of bird community structure, and which are the stations which are far away in terms of similarity of bird community structure. Sulur and Karnikobar may be the nearest, and in South India, probably the distance wise to catch up, but of course, even distance is further. But the bird community structure between these two stations is the highest divergence, not convergence. So Pune and Gwalior share something like 90% of the birds available both places, and also the amount of counts. Tezpur and Chabua, not a surprising thing. Similarly, Jodhpur and Sirsa, they have some physical collocation, or the geographical collocation nearby. So their bird community structures do remain same. Not same, to great extent, same. So by and large, we will be able to extrapolate the best practices if it is there in one station at another station with some basic studies at both the airfields. Next slide, please. So I go to my next objective, which was studied, assess the bird strike related hazards to aircraft in Indian airfield with focus on Indian Air Force airfields. Next slide. I leave the study methodology. Next slide. Yeah, this is something which I didn't show in the beginning. How is the bird strike changing? This also forms part of status of bird strike hazard. See, this is with regard to the civil aviation. We have not shown such breakdown of incidents for the Indian Air Force because of the reasons I already stated. In 2010, the civil aviation in India reported 380 bird strikes, and 2018 they have crossed 1,244. Probably the number of airfields increased, the number of birds also increased probably, but certainly one of the main key factors, the amount of operations also went up exponentially. So if you enhance the operations, be ready to accept that there will be some level of increase in the bird strike. I'm not telling damage. All I would say, with my experience, all our effort as scientific community is towards reducing damage and not just for reducing numbers. I'm sure many of you must be aware of a couple of people, each one of you, who could show by not reporting just the numbers. But what is most important is damage causing incidents. So that again, within the DGCA cadre or the data, it is varying between 9.9 to 8.63 to 15.37. But again, I go back to the same statement. It is roughly taken as around 10% in an environment area where the number of bird strikes lead to damage. Next slide, please. I skipped next. Skip the next. Skip the next. Species and damage. Yeah, this slide I want to take some time out because we have to be very clear on which species do we focus. You cannot keep running behind every myna, every pipit, every prenia. We have to be clear as to which are the birds which are causing the damage and how are they in the environment and why are they in the environment. If we don't understand this, which are the birds which are striking, we'll be running behind birds which are visible to us. So then it is totally skewed data and it is totally unscientific way of approaching the problem. So I have listed this in the reducing order. The number of black kites have caused the highest number of damages as per the data analyzed in the period figure years bracket. Lapwings next, swift next, and then so on. So top 5, if I have to count: black kite, lapwings, swift, pigeons, and logs. Yes, now logs is the one which you keep seeing, and then they also keep hitting, and also it's in with damage. In all these, logs are something which we need to focus, and black kite is one which we need to focus. So I have the other data. It's available in the public domain as it is part of my thesis. So I will not dwell more into it because I know it's your lunchtime and I used to look forward for SACON lunch. Though I have been speaking, I'll miss the SACON lunch. I just want to share this specific study on black kite, lapwing, pigeon population dynamics or select airfields. How individual species of these changed over the airfields. Next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry. Yeah, activity count of hazardous birds at different stations are shown here. Next slide. We'll go one by one. Yeah. Critical bird activity in 3 airfields: Agra, Jodhpur, and Sirsa. This again, I go back to say what I was telling you when I was showing you the activity count. Many stations feel they are the worst hit. That is because we don't have an understanding of overall bird environment at other places. So here are the 3 important airfields which suffer in different ways due to the bird strike hazard. But look at the population dynamics over a year. in 3 different airfields. The red line is Agra, the green line is Sirsa, and the black line is Jodhpur. So the activity can be dynamically different, not just on a particular day or a particular month. Over the months, it can vary drastically, and you cannot, extrapolate an idea. Say Agra in May, you find the least number of birds. You cannot extrapolate the same thing to the next month. Look at the June, it is one of the highest. It is just short of March. So the highest bird activity can be preceded by lowest bird activity. So we cannot make an inference when we observe a lowest bird activity and make a, everything is fine in this airfield, or see the highest bird activity and think that the similar activity goes on throughout the year. It doesn't happen that way. I am spending a little more time on this so that you understand how the bird activity varies over a year. I'm sure you must have done similar studies in your own airfields. If you have not done, it is worth doing, especially after doing such a course. Next slide, please. This is to say past the 1980 to 81, the vulture count in Agra, and then we have the current counts in 2 different years, that is 2019 and 20. That is 1980-81 vulture, that is blue line. Then we have kites 1980-81, that is dotted lines. Then we have red line kites. Now that is the void created by the vulture is being replaced by the kites by and large. So this kind of understanding has to be there. This is where I said the bird community structure understanding is important, and dynamic nature of the airfields has to be catered to. We cannot make any inferences based on single individual standalone data. It has to be a continuous data and continuous analysis, and continuously it has to be inferred, and action plan needs to be revised. Next slide, please. Are we looking at different slides? Next slide. I think we are running a little short on time. Yeah. This is a rock pigeon, another species, just for understanding. We have in Jodhpur the highest rock pigeon activity going on, and in Agra it is lesser extent in comparison with the other two, and Sirsa at the middle. But rock pigeon is one species which doesn't go on very much migration because it breeds throughout the year, and their population also shows variation in terms of activity, and we have compared the 3 stations here. I'm sure you should be able to do these similar studies because that kind of a robust data has been built in the last 4 to 5 years at least, wherein a continuous analysis can be done. Next slide, please. I'll just say this is assessment of management strategies. I'll straight away go to the study results. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. And the next slide. Okay. Next slide. It's next slide. Yeah. I'm just cutting it short. It is a very rigorous and phenomenal amount of effort that was put in to see the level of, to measure the level of bird activity in terms of the reduction from the epicenter of their activity. This is Yelahanka airfield, wherein we had epicenter activity both on the left side. You can see one big bar which gives average of around probably 25 or 40, something like that. I've just forgotten the figure. But at 10 kilometers, the number of birds which are recorded comes down drastically. Or at 7 only, it comes down drastically. So you give a safety margin of 50%. So another 3.5, 900, that is 10.5 kilometers, it comes down drastically. We do see some spike here, but that is because of some other conditions in the environment. But in a realistic environment, which is rare but fairly comparable model, the activity comes down at 10 kilometers, and based on this kind of studies. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is where the average count is around 1,000. There it was around now 40, 50. Here it is 1,000. Even if there are 1,000 at the epicenter, this is the Nizam Ghaziabad, the Hindan airfield reference. So at 10, 7 kilometers, 6 kilometers, 7 kilometers, the activity of black kites due to this epicenter of activity comes down. There might be an increase in the number of level of activity that is not because of this epicenter, and the effect of epicenter generally dies down at 7 to 8 kilometers, at least for this species, the black kites. And that's where I confidently say that the practice of keeping the runway 10 kilometers away from the epicenter of any bird activity is certainly one of the best practices in the world. Next slide, please. That was an intensive physical effort that was put in. This is through the GPS tagged birds, which gave out their location based on their activity for 3 months, 6 months. So by and large, that thing stands good, that their most of their activity, that is 50% of the activity, certainly remains within 10 kilometers from the epicenter, and 95% activity also completes within 10 kilometers. That's where the inferences of our study is sort of augmented in this study. Next slide, please. I'm running short of time. I'll go to the next slide. This is with regard to the restriction on full moon night. There might be people who might be telling you it's all cock and bull story, or this is not scientific, or if there are things there in the West, it need not be true here. Next slide. Next slide. And the next slide. One more, please. One more. Next slide. Yeah, here is the one which says, which confirmed that our initial hypothesis of the lapwings do occupy the runway more, not say in terms of activity, because that's what we could not say exactly with our limited observation, or capability limited observation. We counted the number of birds on the runway, and it certainly confirmed that around the full moon night, the number of activity goes up. The higher the top line is the one, the number of birds counted on full moon nights, and the lower lines are the ones which are counted on other days. So the extent may vary, but there is certainly, in general, may not be all the 12 or 13 full moon nights in a day, but by and large, most of the nights, the full moon night in comparison with the nearest new moon night, the activity or the number of counts on the runway of lapwings will be higher. Next slide, please. Next. Next. Yeah, I spoke about the grass. Grass is very important aspect. That's why I told it is one of the basic principles, best practice principles for best practices in the world. What kind of grass you keep and what height you keep certainly defines the amount of birds which are there and their activity. So this study was done in Hindon. I got a natural, or rather open land experimental area where the specific grass, that is dhoop grass, was laid for 2.5 kilometer distance, 2.7 kilometer to be precise. And I had natural stretch of grass which could be compared in terms of number of birds which were counted on them. Next slide. The yellow patch is the one which had the control, that is, we had the dhoop grass laid, and green patch is the place where I counted the bird activity over natural grass. Next slide, please. Thank you. Next slide. Yeah, this is in summary. This is where if we don't practice the principle in the right way, we will have counterproductive results. The number of birds which were counted on dhoop grass, which was a control, that is, we had put in a lot of effort to keep that dhoop grass, but the amount of birds which were counted on an average was 43 as against 18, which was again on the natural grass. So all the times it may not be true that you put in effort and it gives you result. Smartness, scientific backing, and which is a scientific module which is constantly evaluated is the way. Otherwise, this study very clearly indicated that we had put in a huge amount of effort just to increase the activity, whereas if we had left the natural grass with some height modification, we could have just managed the bird activity to the minimum. I think you can just go 4-5 slides again. Come to slide number, I go towards summary 1 minute. 59, slide number 59 can come. Yeah. I just conclude because I know there is other speakers as well, and we need to conclude with the time limit that was given. Next slide. Studies showed that airfields carry significant number of species, and each airfield has different community structure, amply amplified in the slides that I showed in the recent past. Generally, the passerine species, that is, passerines are all, most of the birds that you see, they are, and also insectivorous birds account for most of the bird activity in airfields. Extreme activities of other orders, you can skip this. The next objective summary, the bird strikes are generally on the increasing trend in India. We saw it going from 300 to 1,200. Historically, vultures were the major damage causing species. Black kites are causing major damage in the recent past. Activity of black kites has been increasing over the airfields. That is, you can go back to your airfields and again confirm for your own airfields, because even I was surprised and shocked, even a place like Hashimara is witnessing increase in the black kite activity. Then activity of hazard bird species varies significantly over the seasons. That we need to understand how it is changing. Next slide, please. Black kite activity significantly reduces over a distance of 7 kilometers. I showed with the deep study that was done. Lapwings occupy the runway areas more on nights closer to the full moon. I think next slide. There is no significant reduction in bird activity or areas of dhoop grass. The dhoop grass, what was the experiment conducted? So that was actually counterproductive. I think with these inferences of my studies, I come to the end of my presentation. Next slide. I wish to thank all those people who helped me The list is very long. In fact, I had 4 slides. I know I'm running short of time, so I cut it down to one slide. Dr. Pramod, SACON director, Dr. Directors, Dr. Aziz, Dr. Shankar, and Dr. Muralidharan sir, who all have helped me. Chief of Air Staff, Air Marshal R.P. Sharma, who actually approved my study leave. Mahe, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, research coordinators from SACON, Balu sir and Arun sir, DAC members who had given very valuable insights and actually grilled me. Today I am done. I am open for any questions. You are on mute. I think you have to unmute. I can't hear anything.
Yeah, that's okay. It's audible?
Yeah, now audible, sir.
Okay.
Now audible.
Can have interactions. Not the 6-7 people from OC. People are, all others, other than the OC people. No question. You are sleeping? Oh, I don't think so. No, no, sir. So he has presented a lot of information. No?
I hope it was interesting and it made sense. No question is very strange. Even in a small class of 10 minutes, I used to have 10 questions in IAS. Or by coming to SACON, people have started understanding the nature. So they have been prepared for questions.
Yeah, actually, they are definitely they are asking questions, not physically, but maybe to screen they are asking questions a problem or I don't know.
Sir.
Anybody just ask some doubt. You anything which connected to your airport or something. Need not what he spoke, something else also.
Yeah.
But otherwise, Srinidhi, they were very interactive.
Okay, sir.
Last 3 days, we have seen a lot of interaction.
Yeah. Some of the people I know personally, they don't keep quiet and they will have 100 questions to ask. Or probably it is lunchtime, more questions asked. So
no, I know who we are talking about.
Sir.
Yeah.
We are implementing dog model in airplanes. It is effective or not effective?
No, I could not get it.
Dog model is effective or not? Dog model. Dog model, a person is sitting behind, but anyway, you can. Dog model is effective or not?
Dog module is again there can be small variations as the stations vary, but we have the full scientific data collected in Agra. I told that we could not publish a paper, but we have specific data to prove that the activity in the limited area, I don't say it's for the whole airfield. Our intention was to reduce the activity on the runway and right next to the runway. In fact, Wing Commander Vinayak sir is a more qualified man sitting there, despite reducing the grass height, which is our otherwise principle. The dog walking module made it up. Even though the grass height was less, the walking of dogs reduce the activity on the runway and immediately in the next vicinity, and they were just pushed out. But we are not looking at sanitizing the whole airfield. We are looking at creating a window wherein the operations can go through. I'm sure at his own time or during his interaction, Wing Commander Vinayak sir can throw a little more light on this specific module. He is the most experienced man in the country as far as dog walking module is considered.
That is anyway scheduled. But again, in my presentation also, I have just mentioned, no? See, dog walking module or any of the module for that matter, is effective to the target group for which that module is prepared. For example, the dog walking module is effective towards the ground birds like lappings and all. But that may not be effective for the black kite.
Kites.
So,
True.
so similarly, black kite, the module which is effective for the black kite may not be effective for this. So, this is a target group is a factor. So, what for each airport will have different targets. Is that right?
Sir, that's the right way to answer. Yeah.
So, one more question. Yeah, Vinayak Sharma wanted to ask you a question.
No, Sarji. You have to come forward, sir.
Shri, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Basically, Shri, I just want you to tell them, like, a lot of Herculean data has been covered with your presentation. For us, we know that, yes, what you actually envisage, you want to motivate them that how this data, they have to collect and look for such data in their airfield while they go back. So something to that extent can give a peace of mind to them that when they go back to their unit, how they could, start and go up behind such data, generating this data, so that tomorrow a person like you who visits their unit, then he can give some advice, some piece of advice with the scientific data available.
Sir, I showed the data actually tip of the iceberg. And that's where I told in the beginning and towards the end also acknowledged all my intellectual pool in SACON. The amount of grilling, the amount of processing of the data that has been done, and also credit to Srijit, Basi, who are all here today. They understand, probably they can tell how much data has been compressed to come out with the 2-line, 3-line inferences. We have done it. No individual can individually collect full data and come out with the inferences the kind has come out here. So it is always we are contributors. So individually you ensure that when you are doing it, you do it, and when others are doing, ask them to do it meticulously, so that over years when it is compared, as we did 1990 data, 2000 data, 2010 data, 2020 data, then the actual understanding of what is happening is understood. Because in nature there are cycles. So some of them are smaller cycles, some of them are larger cycles. So in the bird activity, we are looking at larger cycles. So one is within the year they are varying, and another is that like over 30 years, 40 years, the whole environment changing and the bird community structure changing. This can be understood and then reacted in a scientific way, just like Pramod sir told now, target species. You choose the target and then design a module to keep it under control. I don't say eliminate. Elimination is not the purpose. Either the ornithology cell, Air Force, or the SACON, and write and keep it, you will not be able to eliminate. You eliminate 10 rats in your house, let me see, which is within a closed space. So anybody who thinks of, I will kill all the birds, I will eliminate, and I will have a free thing, he is only fool. I will be blunt in saying, अपना canteen में rat निकाल के दिखाओ, URC में, वो होता नहीं है. Pests or life itself will, even within the closed environment, it happens that they thrive. So in an open environment, it is all the more reasonable that you have a data and ensure that you get a window for safe operations. In that, the data is most important. Data is most important. I think that's one way to, reiterate the need for data.
Okay, thank you, Srinidhi. You can close your presentation. Your presentation is closed, huh? Now you can come and show your face once and say bye. Thank you very much. Show your face once. Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm there.
Thank you.
Thanks so much
Thank
for
you.
patient hearing and your valuable time. Enjoy SACON. Enjoy the company of good people. Not only the ornithology, I had so much good time with others as well. Snake experts, the frog experts, the butterfly experts, the dragonfly experts. Oh, they have changed my personality. They have changed my personality and use these 5 days for, I don't say change, it's an improvement. Have that, great improvement in your personality when you walk out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Srinidhi. On behalf of SACON and all participants, and personally, thanks for coming in online. So we would have enjoyed more when if you are here.
True, sir. True, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So, along with us, you have dinner and lunch there, and we will have in your memory, we will have lunch here. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I'll miss the spicy rasam of SACON.
Okay. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.
Bharat.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, now let us break already.